Welcome to our draft recap. As you can see, I am using my time wisely. What do you do when you take away the 60 to 70 hours approximately per week that you used to teach and coach? Am I going to do some extra classes? Am I going to be seeking other hobbies? Am I going to be showering or shaving? Or maybe getting my hair cut? Apparently, none of those things. Instead, I'm going to make goofy videos about our fantasy league and other fantasy leagues that I'm running because it entertains me. And hopefully it entertains you. Don't know if this will be the only one. Don't know if this is going to be a weekly affair, but figure we'll get started and see where it goes. While I would normally try and frame this in terms of how we drafted or how Yahoo felt we drafted, auctions are very different. So instead, I'm going to take us in order of the way we suggested, because often that was the people who replied to me first that chose first, and we'll go from there. For each person, I'll try and give an idea of, I'll remind you of who you spent the most on, and then I'll try not to ramble too much. Don't roll your eyes quite yet. I'll try and go over just kind of best case or worst case scenarios. So if you're going to succeed or fail, how do we see that happening? So let's get started. All right. First person to respond and first person to select somebody, even though he didn't end up getting him, was Maxon. You did end up, though, getting one of the first players. You did take McCaffrey at what ended up being the highest a player went at 57 total. That was Christian McCaffrey. You seemed to jump on him pretty quick. You then went around and made sure that you spent money on the team that you wanted. So it was clear when you wanted someone, you went out and got them and you paid the money for it. Even, and I'm trying not to make this a euphemism, you definitely wanted to make sure everyone knew that you had the biggest D, and by spending $4 on San Francisco, maybe to go with your McCaffrey, not really sure. So your best case scenario is your big guns pay off. Jamar Chase, you went out and got. You made sure people like Waller, who's a coveted asset, running backs like Najee Harris, right? You spend a great deal to make sure you lock those guys down. And I think if they pay off, you've got a good enough supporting cast that you'll be just fine. I think on the downside, if you're not going to do super well, it might end up being the quarterbacks. You did take two in Goff and Cousins that were under the radar. You got for a reasonable amount. I wouldn't say cheap, but you certainly didn't break the bank on them. And then you got the explosive rookie on your bench in Richardson. I think all three can be great picks, but if Detroit doesn't quite have the offense that they think they are supposed to have, if Minnesota continues with its high and low, and if Richardson can't throw the ball at all, that might end up being something that brings you down. Overall, though, I think you took some people that the computer nerds seem to love, people like Lockett, that often the argument gets made that he's actually flashier and better than DK in a lot of ways, rookie and Addison, people like Gabe Dave. So overall, I think you've got the team you're looking for, you got the team you wanted, and so best of luck. Next up with our second, it was Tim. Poor Tim. You know, we definitely saw the effort. We knew you were trying to sign in. We could see it constantly happening. But we also knew before the draft even went down, I believe it was in the chat well before we even got started, if there was going to be somebody who was going away for the weekend, who something was coming up and who had a problem signing in, you were probably Vegas's odds-on favorite. We did see the effort. We saw you continually get in the draft, but much like a Lion, the second you got in there, you didn't last very long. You got pumped out and you had to try again. You did manage in a good way, though. You ended up getting Jefferson at 56. He ended up being our second most expensive player, but that was just it. With the Autobots and the Meat Morp that was drafting you in Yahoo, when you went after someone, or if no one else went after them, you spent big money. So your big guns are some of the biggest guns going on. Jefferson is a consensus number one in snake drafts. You spent a lot of money on running backs like Henry, even more on Breece Hall and Aaron Jones that weren't going too coveted, and could be the make or break, and I'd say this is where your season's going to go. Spent a fair bit of money on Cooper Kupp. Now, if this is a snake draft, that's several people that you would get in the first couple rounds, so that's pretty good. Unfortunately, we've learned with Kupp already that he's day-to-day. It could be a legit day-to-day. It could be perpetual day-to-day. I don't trust the Rams this year in terms of if they're going to be honest. I think if they have a shot at it, because their division's quite weak, except for maybe one other team, they're going to make a run for it. But if they smell first pick, Cooper Kupp might be benched. So let's see. It could be ended up being one of the steals of the draft. It could be the thing that sinks you. We're not really sure. I did notice already you've been active on the waiver wire because you were one of the only people that drafted one quarterback in Sling and Sammy Howell. Now, Washington, They do have a couple good receivers, some running backs who can catch you, who knows. But instead of your second flex going to a random, you took Baker Mayfield. Yep. Baker Mayfield. Sorry, man. I think he was the last one left for you. But who knows? Tampa Bay, they got a ton of receivers. Someone's got to give them the ball. And at some point in time, Baker Mayfield was someone that people wanted. It was a little while ago, but that's why we have comeback stories. So I think when your big guns are going strong, your receiving crew and your running backs are healthy and ready to roll, you're going to be a tough one to play. If injuries become an issue or if a few of you guys don't follow through, we'll see how it goes. But best of luck, Tim. Sorry about the draft. In our third spot was Gene, and in a similar way, if we'd waited one more week for the draft, his might have been slightly different. He was the person who got saddled with Jonathan Taylor. I can empathize on this one, although when I took Kamara, we knew he was out for a couple weeks. We did not know about Taylor. However, the one benefit that you have over me, Taylor's at least injured, so you can put him on the injured list, and you've already replaced him. You're someone else who also went for one quarterback, and you've already rectified that with Tannehill. Tannehill could be a sleepy one. Some people are thinking Tennessee might be overlooked, and certainly we know their division is nothing to write home about. So between him and Herbert, you might be doing quite well. Herbert was your high. You spent 30 on him, which was our lowest high pick. Yeah, that makes sense. But most of your guys did go in the 20s and 30s, right? So the early 30s, 20s, you loaded up your roster with some people that you wanted. People like Josh Jacobs, all right, Jalen Waddle, Joe Mixon, TJ. So you did surround yourself with a lot of high-end volume guys. I think if your key for success, the people you spent your money on, the depth that you have in positions like tight end, these will end up paying off. Your flexes will get paid off, and you don't look to have too many bye week issues. If you don't work out too well, it might be, once again, the quarterbacks in a double quarterback league. It could be a little bit steep. However, again, if Herbert's slinging and Tannehill can get the job done, could make a surprise run to the end here, Gene. And just your second year in the league could be getting paid out. Good luck, man. Coming in at 4, live from a cafe in Oklahoma. Dibbler, we were pumped that you could sign in. You got the team that you were looking for, and that there was no Wi-Fi issues, because you would have been second on the list of someone who might have had that be a problem for you. You did get our first pick overall. Maxon threw out his Chubb, and you spent 44 to get it. I'm just not going to make another joke just in case YouTube bans us. But you ended up following up with, you could tell the players that you wanted, you took home. So you have depth at running back with Monty and Etienne. Your quarterbacks, you didn't spend a lot on, but you got the people that I think you were looking for in Stafford, Geno Smith, Brock Purdy. If they end up holding on, your wide receiver crew is probably one of the best. T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, Amari Cooper. As a top 3, you're not going to get a whole lot better than that. And they could end up being people, while they're not even always the best on their team, that actually could produce and outproduce the supposed number 1. I think Kittle's health is going to be something that you have to pay attention to, but that's just something you always have to. And here's hoping that Stafford's wife stops making awkward posts on social media and maybe dims that down a shade. If all that can be held true, and I know our number 1 pick, according to Yahoo, the best draft is coming up next. I'd put votes in towards you, though. I bet you would have gotten a good grade if Yahoo did that for auctions, thus proving that maybe having an Americano rather than a Pacifico might be better for people's drafts in futures. But I'm not going to do that. The beer is just the way you got to go. Anyway, good luck, Jeff. All right, at our 5 spot, the Yahoo darling, the Yahoo number 1 draft pick, Connor. Last year's captain quarterback. You definitely tried to bid up as many as you could. This year, you held strong and did the same. I don't think you have the best quarterback class. I'll get to that person in a little bit. But I do think you actually have a better wide receiver class than even Dibbler, at least in the top 3. Your 3 amigos of Diggs, Lamb, and Ridley likely will be the strength of your team, as will your high spender. You spent 48 on Mahomes. I don't think I have to go on and on about how good Mahomes is as a quarterback in general. We're a little worried about who he's throwing to, but we know he can throw to pretty much anyone and make them look good. So your best case scenario is another, season number 1 like you had last year, winning the regular season and then making it all the way to the finals. I think the sky's the limit. You taking the championship as well within your grasp. Worst case scenario, and I think if something's going to bring you down, people like Jammer Gibbs, your running backs, maybe not as proven. Connor plays for Arizona. Insert Arizona joke there. I could have also done that with your fourth quarterback, who I actually think could end up working out okay, and Kyler Murray. It just needs to stop playing video games. But your running back depth, I think in general, you're obviously aware of it. You're one of the first people to go out and make a move to try and get a running back for your depth. So if you can mitigate that one and make sure that's not the point that brings you down, I think you're looking at a successful year. Good luck. All right, drafting sixth, and I don't know what you were drafting in your other draft, but you were two-timing us. I think that's one of the more impressive feats I've ever seen, to have a double down in drafts, and I believe they were both auction drafts, so good for you, Woody. You did bust for Eckler, 47 total, and you went big on the people that you wanted, and then you were one of the people that didn't have a whole lot of money left, so you picked a lot of $1 guys at the end. Not something I think you're scared of. I think you're already leading our league in roster moves. We're 2 days out before the first game. I don't know when you'll end up watching this, but that's when I'm recording it. And you've already made more roster moves than everybody else, with 3 before we even get started. Spending the money on quarterbacks is never a bad idea in this case. Getting Hurts, probably one of the most coveted for both his arms and his legs. If his arms work, you got A.J. Brown as well as that connection. Strong running backs, Barkley and Stevenson to round out Eckler. There's not a lot of weak spots here. I think some of your wide receiver depth, you've already started to replace them by going out and getting Van Jefferson. You do have some depth, but you're going to need some time to let the depth kind of take over, because some of the guys you have in your team, they're going to have to prove themselves, right? Because people like Nico Collins and Thielen, we'll see how they go. You've already picked up and dropped the same player on the way going. So I don't think you've really had time to let this settle and make all your final decisions. But we know that you're going to be active. You're going to be ready to go. So in terms of your best case, I think the strength of your quarterback and your running backs can push you forward. Worst case, you add and drop everybody in the league and there's nobody left for you to pick up and you end up running out of steam. Let's see if it happens. All right, next up was Rennie. Rennie spent $52 on a tight end, but luckily for him, it was Travis Kelce, so probably the tight end you want to spend that kind of money on. He also did do a great job of kind of rounding out, was almost always in the hunt for players and helped to drive prices up quite consistently. And that ended giving him an interesting vibe. I think one of the most interesting things that you did was you drafted a backup tight end when you have the best tight end in the league in Freiermuth, and I'm not going to lie to you, I think that pissed me off at the time, if I remember correctly. But he could be a guy that sneakily slides into your flex spot at some point in time, so he might not just be a backup, he might be a flex with benefits. I think a lot of your players are strong and solid. You get people like Burrow and Dax as your quarterbacks, even Jimmy G on the bench here. But you're going to notice one little theme. You know, people like Just Keep Dobbins. All right, you got people like Pacheco, Cam Akers. Okay, so people that have that high ceiling, but quite a low floor if injury gets involved. So I would say, just like you, Rennie, if you're elbow dropping buses and getting stitches in random places, you might have problems getting momentum. If your crew stays healthy, it could be a dynamite crew to place on any given week. You don't have a lot of bye issues. Maybe week 10 might be a good time to bump into you. But aside from that, you look like you're ready to fly. So good luck. All right, at our 8th spot, our 2-time defending champion, which is even more special when you consider this is only the 3rd time we've done it. So the only champion we've ever had in Marco came out to a pretty decent start. You can tell he had a plan. He was going old school with the running backs. He spent a lot of money. 46 was his high bid on some mustard guy, Dijon Robinson, I think. Some rookie who's supposed to be a generational talent and it's supposed to be incredible for a team that all they really want to do is hand the ball off. If that happens and you can trust Atlanta, this could be flying because you surrounded him with the 2 maybe guys from the past couple of years, the handcuffs or the flexes with benefits, and Tony Pollard and Madison, the ones that we always thought whenever their starter is out, they fly in the backfield and have great per week averages during those times. So if they pan out, you're going to have the strongest running back crew in the game. If they don't, and if a rookie running back, or let's say hypothetically Atlanta takes incredible skilled players and then doesn't know how to use them at all, see last year and 2 years ago with Pitts and Drake, you might have a little bit to struggle for, but I do think your overall talent is probably good enough to push through. You're definitely watching Hard Knocks. You went heavy on the Jets. I like your little triangle of happiness, sadness. Let's see. Don't know what kind of ayahuasca you were taking there, but we're having Rodgers, Wilson, and then his old lover and Devontae Adams. Interesting little triangle there. It does leave you open with the 2 Jets at quarterback, wide receiver, currently one of your defenses. Pollard also, and Dallas has a running back by week 7. So whoever gets you week 7, spoiler alert, it's Connor. They might be looking out. They might be facing you at a slight disadvantage. But that's never stopped you before. All right, I think it would be a shock if you weren't finished top 4. It'd be a shock if we weren't making a push to go as far as you could. But just don't expect any of us to be cheering for you because, frankly, no one likes a winner. Next to last pick is someone I do not want to spend a lot of time on, not because I have anything against Kent, but Rushke, that name, just it's a knife in the chest and the back at the same time, every time. I got to hand it to you, though. You might be captain quarterback this year. While you might think I'll be talking about your wide receivers because Hills, $46 is your high bid, and DK Metcalf, Hopkins, your guys. You did go Chicago-wise with DJ Moore, but no, it's definitely your quarterbacks. If you're going to take it, the 3 you took could end up being elite and could end up being 3 in the top 5. Justin Fields, mainly with his legs, and then we'll see if he can find a few more times consistently with his arm. We know Josh Allen can do it with both arms and legs. And I don't want to mention body parts too much when I mention your backup in Deshaun Watson. We're all hoping his endings stay miserable and not happy, and if he can keep himself on the right side of the massage table, those could be 3 guys who are honestly, like I said, top 5 quarterbacks. If that's the case, you've got depth, you've got that point value, you've got the depth in your roster in general. Sky's the limit, and I think you're definitely someone who's going to be competing for a title. If you're not, I think it's likely your running backs. Sanders looks great, but it's Carolina. Javonte Williams, hopefully he doesn't sneeze and blow a ligament. And your depth in Harris, Herbert, they're people with a lot of upside, and I think you got a lot of, there's a lot of potential. But if you have an Achilles heel, I think that's going to be it. So which way it goes really does depend on the strength of your arm and probably Fields' legs. And again, I can't make any more jokes about Watson. It just makes me so sad. Last, and I hope not least, was me. There is nothing more riveting than someone talking about their own fantasy team. It's the best way to make someone fall asleep or just leave you in the middle of a party because they're tired of talking to you. So I'll be as brief as I can. I actually think my wide receiver group are pretty solid in St. Brown, Olave, and Watson. I think Yahoo disagrees because I have them in other pools and they rank me pretty badly. But I got the team that I wanted with them. Lamar Jackson and Trevor Lawrence were 2 of my top quarterbacks, so I'm pumped about that. The only thing I'm not pumped of was, for whatever reason, why I thought I was bidding up Kyle Pitts and I ended up getting him. I've had him last year. It's such a kick. And now to even hear Atlanta talk about how much they want to run the ball, unless Pitts wants to get in the backfield, that might be a waste. So if anyone likes to take a gamble, and I'm willing to entertain trades, let me know. Aside from that, like I said, if I win or if I lose, I'm doing it with the guys that I wanted because I legitimately like most of my team, except for that meathead. So let's see how it goes. All right, so that's it for the draft recap. I do not know how many I'll actually do, but in my head, I'm going to do a ton of them, so we'll see how it works. But you're just as likely, to not hear from me until the end of the year. But at least you can put me at 1.5 speed, and it's not just my annoying voice. It's my annoying face, too, so that's pretty special. I hope the chat group stays lively. Marco and Rennie, we're probably looking at you mostly on that one. It's good to hear from everybody, and for those who we saw at the draft, it was great to see us, so I hope we find an excuse to do it at some point in time for the rest of the season. Till then, we got a couple days till kickoff, 2 till the first game, and then a couple more till the weekend. I wish you all the best, and good luck this year, folks. See ya.